Hajime is a powerless, auraless, and maidenless high schooler who gets bullied all the time for being weak. One day, his entire class gets summoned to become heroes and save the kingdom of Tortoise. But even in this world, Hajime remains a loser, because while his classmates all got legendary skills and abilities, all he got was transmutation. So the best he can do is move rocks. One day, as the class ventures into the labyrinth to train, Hajime tries to fend off a monster, but he lacks the sword skills to do so, so he ends up needing to be saved by Amanagawa, who beheads it in one swing. Hiyama comes over just to mock Hajime for being useless, but then he gets pissed because everyone else actually cares about Hajime even though he's weak. It's almost like they like him because he's a good person, something Hiyama wouldn't understand. Anyway, Amanagawa's strike revealed some crystals hidden in the wall, and Meld recognizes them as glands crystals, which are really valuable, but it's strange to find such a large cluster of stones. So he tells everyone to stay away from it until he checks if it's safe. But of course, Hiyama's monkey brain completely ignores the warning and goes for the shiny stone, triggering a trap that teleports everyone to a boss battle room. Meld immediately realizes that the situation is bad, and he knows they stand no chance of surviving, so he yells for everyone to get to the staircase as soon as they can, while he and the guards hold off the monsters. They do their best to keep the monster back with a barrier, but the behemoth is too strong, so it breaks through with ease and nearly causes the bridge they are on to collapse. If the bridge collapsed, everyone here would have fallen to their death, but Hajime comes in clutch and uses his transmute skill to keep the bridge standing and slow the behemoth down, but it won't last for long, so he urges everyone to run away while they still can. Thanks to him, all his classmates were able to make it off the bridge safely. But the behemoth is starting to break through Hajime's rocks, so Captain Meld tells everyone to cast spells to buy Hajime enough time to escape. They all do as instructed, and Hajime starts running to get off the bridge, but just when it looked like he was going to be alright, one of the blasts from Hiyama heads straight towards him, and Hajime is sent falling to his doom while his classmates look on in horror. Hajime manages to survive the fall, but he is now deep inside the labyrinth, so he tries to find his way out before he runs into a terrifying monster. Unfortunately, he immediately runs into this bunny, and although at first it didn't look that dangerous, after seeing it fight, Hajime is terrified for his life. He tries sneaking away before he gets spotted, but he accidentally trips, alerting the bunny to his presence. The bunny is about to kill him, but then it senses something even more terrifying and it doesn't want to stick around to find out. Unfortunately for the bunny, it got caught and was eaten almost instantly by a giant bear monster, and after taking care of the bunny, it sets its sights on Hajime. He tries his best to flee, but the bear manages to slash off one of his arms, and then it proceeds to eat Hajime's arm right in front of him to be extra disrespectful. Hajime desperately tries to crawl away, but he ends up backed against a wall with nowhere to go. But then, as his life was flashing before his eyes, all his years of Minecraft come back, so he starts digging down with his skill to hide in a hole. The bear keeps chasing after him, so Hajime frantically places blocks to slow it down as he goes further into his hole. Eventually he manages to break through to a connected cave, but even if he managed to escape the bear for now, he is still missing an arm and is starving, so he won't last much longer. The only reason he is still alive is because he got lucky and found a mana crystal that naturally produces holy water with healing properties, but Hajime's body is still in so much pain that he wants to die and end his suffering already. His mind starts racing to find someone to blame for his situation in his dying moments. He remembers how one of the blasts from his classmates was aimed at him instead of the monster, and it looked really deliberate, but Hajime can't think of anyone who would want to kill him. Just then, Jerk's stupid face flashes before Hajime's eyes, and he realizes Jerk must have been the one who tried to kill him. He recalls that Kaori had warned him to not go on this mission the night before, because she had a dream that something bad would happen to him, and now he's wishing he had listened to her. He knows that no one is going to come to save him, but he doesn't understand why he, of all people, has to suffer like this. First, he was brought to this world against his will, and now he has been betrayed by his classmates and left to fend for himself against these terrifying monsters. This is where Hajime finally snaps, because he swears to himself that he will make it home no matter what, and anything or anyone who gets in his way will be killed. He's going to do whatever it takes to survive, and the first thing on the agenda is his food situation, so he decides to do some hunting. He goes outside and taunts two wolf monsters to trick them into chasing him. His plan works, and the two wolves end up following him all the way down through the cave, but they don't see the trap Hajime made and fall straight into a hole, after which Hajime proceeds to pummel them with rocks like a madman until they die. It's not the most elegant method, but it got the job done, so he begins eating and it tastes absolutely terrible. But even worse, he starts experiencing excruciating pain as the cells from the wolf meat start messing with his DNA. Hajime bends over and worries that this monster meat might be deadly, but then his body starts undergoing violent changes. Normally, this would have killed any human, but thanks to the holy water, Hajime managed to survive the ordeal, and his body feels a lot lighter than it used to. He gets up and looks at his reflection, only to find that his hair has turned white, and his eyes are now red. As a result of his mutation, he now possesses a new mana manipulation skill, as well as the skill lightning field that the wolves possessed. He can't use it as well as the wolves could, but he can still create enough electricity to cook the rest of his meat with it, and it still smells awful, but at least he won't have to eat it raw anymore. The extra skills he got now allow him to appraise a rock simply by touching it, and after searching around a little, he finds something called a blast rock. It can be ground up and will cause an explosion if heat is applied, so Hajime believes he can craft a good weapon out of this. A weapon would make battles here a lot easier, so he immediately gets to work designing a gun with the blast rocks he found. He uses transmutation to form a gun barrel out of hard tar rocks, and by filling bullets with the explosive blast rocks and accelerating them with his lightning skill, he is able to create a gun with high-powered explosive rounds, allowing him to easily defeat monsters like that rabbit from before. He then drags the rabbit corpse back to his cave and starts eating, but monster meat still tastes terrible. On the bright side, it did increase his level, and granted him new skills like quick step and aerodynamics for extra mobility. With this, he is confident that he is strong enough to defeat any monsters, and he's got a grudge he needs to settle. He heads back to the area where the bear that ate his arm is, and as soon as he spots it, he uses aerodynamics to jump into the air and fires at the bear. Unfortunately, the bear manages to counter and knocks him down, leaving Hajime injured. But while this may look bad, Hajime made something special for a situation like this. He pulls out a flash grenade and throws it straight in the bear's face, resulting in a blinding flash of light. And while the bear is blinded, he gets some payback by shooting one of its arms off and chomping down on it to assert dominance, after which he puts a bullet through the bear's head to finally claim his victory. After eating as many beasts as possible, Hajime is now so strong that he can't level up from eating the monsters in this area anymore, but he still can't find a way up, so instead, he decides to go down to find an exit. He recalls that this labyrinth is meant to have 100 levels, but there aren't exactly any signs around here, so he has no idea how long it will take him to reach the bottom. He begins mining his way down and soon stumbles upon a cave, but as soon as he turns his lamp on, he locks eyes with a lizard, and one look from it makes Hajime rock hard. He ducks behind a boulder and tries to slow down the petrification process with a potion, but the lizard is still coming after him, so he has to think quickly. As the lizard climbs over the rock, Hajime throws a small bottle at it, and the lizard gets its vision privileges revoked, and now that it is blind, it's an easy target for Hajime to gun down. He keeps making his way through the labyrinth while slowly building his aura with each new monster meal. But while he's doing that, his classmates return from the kingdom to report what happened to the king, and Meld explains to the king that things didn't go as planned. Because Hiyama couldn't keep his grubby mitts to himself, they ended up getting teleported down to the 65th floor. It's a miracle they managed to survive the incident at all, but unfortunately one of the heroes, Hajime Nagumo, wasn't so lucky. Word of Hajime's death has already begun to spread, and that's bad press for the kingdom, so the king orders Meld to act like this never happened, and the same goes for all the other heroes. Shizuka feels terrible about what happened, so she heads out into the courtyard to take her mind off it. But while training, Shizuka notices Hiyama in the courtyard, and he seems really nervous, almost like he did something and is worried he is going to get caught. She recalls how back on Earth Hiyama was constantly picking on Hajime, and now that she thinks about it, he was probably jealous of all the attention Kaori gave Hajime instead of him, so she briefly considers the possibility that Hiyama was the one who blasted Hajime. But she doesn't think that's possible since no one would be petty or stupid enough to kill their classmate over a crush. Right. Shizuka then goes to Kaori's room to see how she's doing, and Kaori finally wakes up from her coma. She has been unconscious for 5 days, so her memory is a little fuzzy, and all she can remember is the fact that they were fighting in the labyrinth. She asks Shizuka if Hajime is alright, but Shizuka doesn't say a word, and that silence tells her everything she needs to know. Kaori realizes that Hajime didn't make it back with them, and she is devastated and can't believe her dear friend is really gone. Meanwhile, Hajime is still trying to make his way through the labyrinth, and he still has no idea how long it will take for him to reach the bottom, but those doors look pretty promising, so he makes some more bullets for himself and gets ready to head in. Unfortunately, he has no idea how to open the door. He tries using transmute to see if he can just mine his way through the door, but he gets repelled and all of a sudden the statues next to the door come to life. Hajime saw this coming and he's not about to let himself get jumped, so he shoots one in the head and kills it instantly. He then squares off against the second one, but when he tries to shoot it, his bullets have no effect whatsoever. The Cyclops seems to be using some sort of defensive magic to protect itself against Hajime's bullets, but fortunately, Hajime has the perfect strategy for getting through a magic barrier. He continuously fires at the Cyclops' barrier until it eventually shatters, making it an easy target and allowing Hajime to shoot it in the eye. And now that that's done, Hajime gets ready to see what's so important that it required 2 Cyclopses to guard it. He cuts the Cyclopses open and finds 2 mana stones in them, and he figures out that it has something to do with the door, so he puts the mana stones in the door and it unlocks it, revealing a glowing cube in the middle of the room. As the glow of the cube dims, it reveals a cute girl trapped within it, but this smells like a trap, so Hajime goes nope and turns around to walk out the door. The girl looks at Hajime and says, "Help me, step bro, I'm stuck." But Hajime isn't an idiot, so he knows normal people don't end up trapped in a glowing cube deep in a labyrinth. He assumes she probably did something terrible to deserve a punishment like this, but the girl tells him he's wrong. She's trapped here because she was betrayed. Hearing the word betrayal strikes a chord with Hajime, so he suddenly cares about the girl's situation a lot more and asks her to explain what happened to her. Even if she was betrayed, it seems like overkill for someone to lock her all the way down here. The girl explains that she is vampire royalty, and she was born with incredible power, which she always used for the good of her people. However, one day, her ministers told her she was no longer needed, and they would be ruling the kingdom in her place. The girl was honestly fine with handing over control of the kingdom peacefully, but her ministers feared her power, and they physically couldn't kill her, so they decided to lock her away in this box. Hajime asks what she means by they couldn't kill her, so the girl explains that one of her abilities allows her to heal incredibly fast, so most physical damage is meaningless to her. And her second ability allows her to manipulate mana without needing a magic circle, so Hajime can see why she was so feared. In any case, he's emotionally invested now, so he decides to free her from her prison. He places his hand on the box and attempts to use transmute to break it down. It's not an easy job, and the old Hajime never could have managed it, but with his current strength, he keeps going until the box eventually disintegrates, releasing the girl from her prison. Now that she's free, Hajime asks her if she has a name, but the girl has no need for the name given to her by the people who betrayed her, so she asks Hajime to give her a new name, and he decides to call her Yue, because seeing her reminded him of the moon. Yue is really happy about her new name, so she jumps into Hajime's arms to thank him. But things have been going too well for him, so something was bound to go wrong at some point. And that's when several spikes are shot at him from the shadows, leaving Hajime severely wounded. With Yui's help, the spikes are removed from Hajime's back. He hands her the bear pelt to cover up as the new duo faces up against their first enemy, a giant scorpion beast blocking their exit. He showers the scorpion with bullets, but its shell is too thick to be damaged. As Hajime pauses to think of a method to bypass its shell, Yue jumps off his back and bites his neck for blood. Her action startled him, but he doesn't doubt her choice, so he uses his magic to mold a wall to buy her time, as the scorpion uses the same magic to try and force its way through. All juiced up, Yue casts an azure blaze which inflicts damage to its shell, but not enough to kill it. A second coordinated attack with Hajime on the top side of the scorpion's shell breaches it and fatally strikes the beast. Celebrating their victory, the two bond over a campfire with some scorpion kebabs. Here Yue is informed that all the vampires were eradicated 300 years ago. She shares that the labyrinth was built by beings called Mavericks, who rebelled against their gods and wanted to destroy the world, but failed and fled into these labyrinths and are said to be hiding at the very bottom level. Their destination was now clear. The Maverick at the bottom held the key out. Using the scorpion shell, Hajime created high-caliber bullets for a railgun he crafted and named Schlagen. Surprised by all the foreign concepts this man is spouting, she asks about his side of the story. The two journey deeper as he tells her of the events that transpired thus far. Saddened by her tale, his goal of returning home made her even sadder. Yue had nowhere to call home. Seeing how she reacted, Hajime invited her to join him on this journey, which she accepts without hesitation. Back at the kingdom, led by the level 50 classmate Amanogawa, the party prepares for another venture into the labyrinth. Meanwhile, Hajime and Yue flee from a horde of seemingly endless T-Rex with a peculiar flower on their head that leads the two to believe that the monsters are controlled by parasitic hive mind. They manage to break the line of sight and escape temporarily to begin their search for the hive mind keen on hunting them down. Along the way, Yue doesn't hesitate to take several sips from Hajime's neck. They approach an entrance that the dinosaurs protected feverishly, which leads them to believe that their target is close. Inside the cave, green spores are carried by the wind. All of a sudden, Yue loses control of her body and begins attacking Hajime. As a flower sprouts atop her head, a humanoid spore creature resembling a human female takes cover behind Yue, and by using her, shoots at Hajime with magic, opening him up for the spores. The monster celebrates her victory as a flower sprouts atop Hajime's head. However, the immunity he gained by devouring all those beasts kept him in control as the flower wilted, but the monster still uses Yue as cover, so the stalemate continues. Yue regretfully asks Hajime to shoot, who takes no time to hesitate and slays the beast with 2 bullets. His lack of tact awards him with her angry punches. The two rest at a campfire as Hajime eats the slain monster, and Yue strips down for no reason other than to sip more of Hajime's blood. The two journey deeper into the labyrinth and finally reach the door into the Maverick's chamber. Behind the door is a huge room decorated with large crystal columns on the sides leading to a second door. As they make their way through the door, an enormous summoning circle appears and summons a massive hydra that stands between them and their goal. Each hydra head bears a unique color and magic corresponding to its color. The duo keeps up with the assault, but soon realizes that all their damage is negated by the white hydra's healing magic. Hajime and Yue attempt to focus their attack, but the other heads notice and stand in between them, protecting the white head from harm. Hajime draws the hydra's attacks, giving Yue a chance to shoot a powerful spell at the healer. However, her attack is blocked by the yellow head specialized in defense. After her failed attack, the black hydra head uses illusionary magic to make Yue believe that she is once again sealed, and Hajime has abandoned her. Her screams cause Hajime to grab her and disengage. Yue snaps out of it and tells Hajime what she has seen. He then kisses Yue for the first time and reassures her they will win this fight and make it to the surface and back home together no matter what. They bond now stronger than ever. They hatch an attack plan to defeat the monster. Yue distracts the beast using powerful magic, while Hajime grabs Schlagen and shoots a devastating beam that destroys all but the blue, red, and green heads. Without their healer, they now stand no chance against Yui's heavenly blaze, which eradicates the beast. Or so they believed. A final silver head appears and targets Yue. Hajime jumps in and tanks the blast using his rifle and as much defensive magic as he can. The smoke settles and the rifle disintegrates, while Hajime falls unconscious to the ground. Yue grabs him and creates a barrier protecting them from the ensuing attacks. She manages to pull him far enough and give him all the holy crystal water she can find, but he still won't wake up. She grabs Hajime's gun and rushes off to face the beast herself, but the bullets fail to penetrate the beast's hide. It blasts her down as well. Her cries for Hajime do not fall on deaf ears. Hajime grabs Yue and carries her away from danger. The last attack he took cost him his eye, but he has grown noticeably stronger, and to protect his new lover, he got an immense rage that got him back on his feet to save his partner and fell the monster. They coordinate an attack where Hajime drops the ceiling on the hydra and transmutes it into a conductive cage, while Yue shoots an azure blaze which is amplified by the trap surrounding the beast. It perishes under their combined force as the two lovers find a moment to rest. Meanwhile, the party headed by Amanogawa makes its way through the labyrinth, once more oblivious to their classmates' survival, all except Kaori, who can still sense that Hajime has survived. Bandaged but at full capacity, Hajime wakes up with a strange soft sensation in his palm. To his surprise, he finds himself naked in a bed with Yue inside a gazebo surrounded by a forest. He lets go of her cheeks and electrocutes her into waking up. Noticing his well-being, Yue celebrates and hugs Hajime with tearful eyes. After he's caught up about how Yue patched him up, they realize they are now in the Maverick's domain. They fetch some clothes and make their way to a mansion, standing alone in the woodland scenery. An illusionary sky mimics daytime and nighttime above them. The couple make their way into the building and find many rooms sealed off. On the third floor, they find an open room that begins to light up as they make their way inside. Across from them sits a skeleton dressed in fine wear, peering at a ritual circle in the middle of the room. Hajime steps into the circle seeking answers. It glows as the skeleton develops an illusionary cover of the human it once was, Oscar Orcus, the maverick who built this labyrinth. He congratulates the two on reaching this chamber and revealing that he is only a recording and will do no more than tell them why he and his fellowship did what they did after finding out the truth of this world. Meanwhile, on level 65 of the labyrinth, Amenagawa and his group are ready for round 2 of their fight on the bridge with the behemoth and his skeletal army. They spawn in, but instead of panicking, the group spreads out and does their respective roles in the fight. Attackers go in as mages and supports fulfill their duty successfully, fending off the monster's attack while dishing out their own. Their combined effort successfully defeats the behemoth, and so the skeletons begin to fall apart while the group rallies after their first decisive victory. Back to the MC. The recording begins to bid Hajime farewell. Oscar tells Hajime he will now inherit his powers and hopes that he will not use them for evil. A surge of information rushes through Hajime's head. The Mavericks were in truth Liberators, and now he wields a form of ancient magic, creation magic, allowing him to give magic properties to raw materials to create artifacts. The first thing he does is teach Yue how to wield this magic. She learns it but fails to create artifacts herself. The two spend the following days snooping around the mansion. They find a book that informs them of how clearing the rest of the labyrinths will also yield ancient magic, which might help them return home. Later, the duo shares a bath together where Yue expresses her love to Hajime, who is still shy and awkward when confronted with the matter. Using the vast resources inside the mansion, Hajime crafts several tools to aid on their journey. Vehicles, weapons, a crystal to replace his eye and an arm, all using the creation magic he learned. After 2 months of prep, Hajime puts a ring on Yue, cementing their relationship. The two prepare themselves and finally leave the labyrinth, ready with their unwavering bond to take on whatever the world throws at them, even against the gods that stand in the way of their goal. In the Risen Gorge Canyon, a busty bunny girl finds herself surrounded by dinosaurs while she runs around asking for someone to appear. Just then, Hajime's and Yue's ritual circle appears, and the two drop in, scaring the dinosaurs away. They celebrate their successful escape, while the two lovers gaze into each other's eyes. Their wholesome moment is ruined by the blabbering bunny beast woman charging their way before falling and getting her head stuck in the ground. They move on and try to ignore the nuisance, but she grabs onto Hajime and begs the two to save her family. Her request falls on deaf ears, and the duo continues moving forward. Suddenly, a giant two-headed monster Daihador returns and stands in front of Hajime, who takes it out with ease, much to the bunny girl's amazement. She introduces herself as Shia, the eldest daughter of the Howlia beast tribe. She pleads the two to help her race from being exterminated, and after a lot of begging, they finally agree to look into the matter before she insults Yue's breast size as a way inferior to hers and gets blasted to near death for it. Shia was exiled from her tribe for the magic powers she held. Her power to see possible futures is what helped her come to where the duo would appear. She also saw the doom of her tribe on the horizon. The duo agreed to help her on the condition that she helps them navigate the Sea of Trees on their path to the next labyrinth. They reach the Beastman village just in time to save it from a group of flying dinosaurs. Her tribe had left the other Beastmen tribes to support Shia after it was revealed that she has a magic similar to monsters, a fact detested by Beastmen who do not wield magic. Her tribe's weakness and lack of magic meant their struggle for survival was an extremely difficult one, but with Hajime's and Yue's help, that task was accomplished with ease. Shia offers to join them on their journey, but the two reject firmly. But instead, seeing that none of her tribe are fit for combat, they spend the next few days training them, so they are ready to survive. After rigorous training, Shia learns to enhance her physical attributes for combat and asks to join the couple on the journey once again, claiming to be in love with Hajime. Just then, her tribe returns turned into bloodthirsty killers that know how to fend for themselves, maybe a bit too well. The Beastmen tribe leads the couple to the Great Tree within the Sea of Trees. There, a tablet asks them to present 3 more symbols similar to the ring they got from Oscar, the power of regeneration, and a beacon formed of bonds to unlock the door forward. Knowing what they need, the duo heads for the rest of the labyrinths in search of the other symbols. Shia recalls a memory of her mother telling her a story about a white shadow that lurks within the sea of trees hidden from all. Moral of the story was to teach her not to fear everything different, and that one day she will meet special and wonderful people just like her. That is why she insists on going along with the couple while keeping it a secret. After Shia succeeded in her training with Yue, Hajime allows her to join them, yet he tries to push her away one last time, but fails. With a new member in tow, the trio bids the Beastmen's tribe farewell and continues their journey in search of labyrinths. Still in the Risen Gorge, the trio looks for the entrance to the labyrinth. Shia stumbles upon a strange sign, and when they gather around it, a voice echoes and welcomes them to Milady Risen's super-duper exciting labyrinth. There Shia, by some stupid luck, once again stumbles over the secret entrance. Needless to say, this labyrinth has no lack of traps. Some spikes shoot out the wall, scaring Shia shitless. Aside from physical traps, the voice recording of Milady on its own is a form of torture to their ears. From boulders barreling down a narrow hallway, spinning saws from either side of the walls, a giant bottomless pit, even buckets falling on Shia's head, the maze was level S hazard, yet nothing the three adventurers couldn't handle. After a while and a lot of teasing by Milady, they enter a familiar room, the place they started at. After running in circles for a while, they reach a room with a door at the far end and suits of armor decorating the walls on either side. To no one's surprise, the suits begin to move and attack the trio. There's nothing special about them, but they do seem endless, so they rush towards the door and jump through onto a moving block. The block takes them up face to face against a giant iron golem with a smiley face drawn on it, claiming to be Milady Risen. According to Oscar's notes, Milady is as dead as he is, but the golem insists it is Milady. Milady's tone changes from playful to serious as she asks Hajime about his end goal. He tells her that he wishes to return to his world after the god of this world forced him here. Hajime asks her whether the rift-crossing ancient magic is in this labyrinth. She returns to her playful speech and refuses to give an answer, which prompts our hero to attack with a missile barrage. Their clash begins. Milady's armor is very thick, which makes it hard to reach the core of the body. Her attacks cover a wide range but are easy to dodge. Hajime delivers a powerful blow that knocks the golem down, giving Yue the chance to freeze it into the ground. Hajime then uses a drill to stick a rod above the golem's core. Shia follows up by smashing her giant hammer on the iron rod, thus penetrating the armor and destroying the core. As the golem's power begins to fade, Milady gives Hajime a warning. Following the path he is currently on, he will eventually face the bastard gods they fought long ago and achieve god-killer status. She bids them farewell and good luck on their journey as she disappears. Inside Milady's chamber, the trio finds yet another golem, a small one that Milady uses to greet them again. After a few smacks, she teaches the group gravitic magic that only Yue is high enough level to use for now, with a bit of training. With a second ring in Hajime's hand and some more valuable resources squeezed out of her, Milady flushes the group out of the labyrinth, back out onto the surface. With Shia drowned, Hajime gives her mouth-to-mouth to revive her, which she takes full advantage of, and slips a lot of tongue in Hajime. But being the Chad that he is, our boy forcefully removes her and throws her back into the water. The trio, all wet from that experience, make their way to the nearby town inn for the night. Yue and Shia fight over a room with our MC, ending with Shia getting shot for saying out-of-pocket stuff. Inside the Furin Adventurers Guild, the guild master Ilwa Chang hosts Hajime and his two companions. He had heard of their accomplishment of passing through the Risen Gorge with ease and wishes to employ them for a request. Hajime declines at first, but is persuaded to hear him out on the condition that their exploits be kept hidden so they maintain a low profile. His request is to find a missing party that led a survey in the northern mountains, specifically the son of Count Kudeta, Will Kudeta. Hajime accepts in exchange for status plates of their own, as well as the guild master's support if needed. The trio wastes no time and travels towards the last known location of the missing party. Along their way, they make a stop at a village where the teacher of the Isekai class named Ai taught the villagers how to plant and maintain rice fields, which the place is now famous for. Hungry for his homeland's staple food, Hajime's party reaches the inn where his teacher and a few of her students are resting. Before this point, Hajime had been believed to be dead by everyone who knew him before the incident in the labyrinth. However, mention of his name by Yue and Shia, as well as his familiar voice, makes it obvious to Ai, despite his drastic change in appearance. He tried to deny his identity, but his teacher was certain, so he finally admitted it. He gave her very vague answers as to what happened since he was last seen, before one of the knights escorting Ai and her students insulted Shia and Yue, which got him a bullet to the shoulder. One of the students listening all this was someone who admired Hajime after he saved her on the bridge where this all started. Before moving on, Hajime made it clear to everyone around that he had cut ties with the group he came to this world with and all those they worked alongside. His goals were his own, and none should stand on his way. Later that night, Ai was contemplating her meeting today only to be interrupted by none other than Hajime himself. In private, he reveals to Ai what he has learned so far, and why he chose to cut ties with the kingdom. A long time ago, this world was ravaged by endless wars between all three races. The god ruling over them made them believe he was pursuing peace between the humans, demons, and beastmen, while in truth, he was the puppet master inciting conflict for his entertainment. The Liberators were a group of people who realized who the cause of all this conflict was and tried to rid the world of their oppressors. However, this god had realized their intentions and turned the church and humanity against them, branding them as traitors. Sworn to protect their people, the Liberators did not fight back. They are the people now known as the Mavericks. The few members that survived the culling had fled into labyrinths of their creation, waiting for someone capable of completing what they had set out to do. Hajime admitted that he didn't care about the mad god, he only aimed to get the ancient magic necessary to leave this world. Before he left, I told him that the priestess Kaori hadn't given up her search for him, which is when he revealed that what happened to him was no accident, but an attempt to take his life by one of her students, and that left her in shock. The following morning, Hajime's group is stopped by Ai and her students, who insist on joining them so that she can hear in detail what has happened. Seeing that refusing won't work, he conjures up a vehicle for all involved and sets off into the mountains. The group makes their way into the mount in search of the Count's son and one of Ai's students, who had wandered off on his own. Using drones he crafted with his relic creation magic, Hajime tracks down a scorched field with obvious marks of battle and a crater left by a giant creature. They press forward towards a human signal further in the mountains behind a waterfall, and inside a cave they find Will Kudeta, the Count's son. Suffering minor injuries, he is delighted to have finally been found. Will tells them of his terrifying experience and how group was slaughtered by a group of monsters, the worst being a black dragon. Hajime slapped some sense into him and brought him back on his feet, as they made their way beyond the red moon that loomed over them with the sound of impending danger. The same black dragon swoops in and commences its attack on the group. It unleashes a stream of flames that pin Hajime down as he shields his teacher and her students. At that moment, Yue uses Heavenly Blaze to stop the dragon and drops it to the ground. Shia follows up with her hammer attack but fails. Hajime orders Yue to protect the group so that he can focus on offense. The dragon seems to be focused on Will, but the danger Hajime imposes quickly forces it to set its eyes on him. The two duke it out, with Hajime obviously in a much stronger position using his vast arsenal. Soon after the dragon falls and Hajime readies the machine he used to penetrate the armor of Milady's Golem so that he can finish off the beast. The dragon tries to escape, but Shia's hammer knocks it out. Hajime's knowledge of dragons leads him to believe that the only way to do damage to the beast is by attacking the one place without scales, the ass. Hajime grabs the giant rod and shoves it up the dragon's anus only to be met with feminine screams. The dragon announces that she is a dragonborn and will reveal her intentions if the rod that Hajime keeps driving into her colon is removed. He doesn't accept and seeks answers before she can be relieved. The dragon reveals that she was headed to the vicinity to investigate the travelers from another world. While resting on her journey, a man in black robe cast mind manipulation magic on her in her sleep so that she would target and kill Will and his companions. Yue asks Hajime to spare the dragon as the killing was not of her will. The dragon herself begs him to remove the rod since her mana is almost depleted and she will return to human form, which would kill her in that state. With the rod forcibly removed and the dragon reverted into human form with a possible new kink, she reveals her identity to be Teo Claris, of the Claris clan of Dragonborn. She warns the group that an army of thousands of monsters led by the man in black robes is headed for the town of Ur. Hajime's drones confirm that an army of 60,000 will be upon them in 2 days. His mission only being to save Will, Hajime refuses to face the army or its head figure, as it doesn't concern him, and sets off to return Will home with a new perverted and masochistic dragonborn, unfortunately joining his party. Ai implores her student to help face the army of monsters and save Ur from annihilation. Unable to refuse his teacher's request, Hajime accepts and begins his preparations to halt the assault. Defensive measures are taken, barricades are built, and women and children are evacuated, while everyone left to fight eats and rests in preparation for battle. Night falls, and as Hajime cleans his rifle, Sonobe approaches and thanks him for saving her life that day on the bridge in the labyrinth. He doesn't think much of it but gives her words of encouragement. A presence of a pervert lurks near as Tio comes out and asks Hajime a question. Tio asks him if his journey will continue after this fight, and if she can join him. He refuses without wasting a second, but her masochistic nature takes it as teasing, making her an official member since she simply won't leave. Seeing as how the townsfolk aren't as reliable as necessary and want to give him a minor role, Hajime proclaims to the people in his rallying speech that Ai-sensei is a goddess, meaning their victory is certain, and all credit for that should be given to her. Atop the barricade wall, Hajime's group initiates their long-range attacks, each using the most powerful AoE attacks at their disposal. Tio's attacks are especially powerful. However, her mana runs out quickly and she helps herself to a nap. With his long-range bullets running low, Hajime and Shia charge in with Yue supporting from the rear. The two begin attacking battalion leaders to throw the army into confusion, since only the monsters in charge are under the mind control spell. Their plan succeeds, and the army begins to rout after suffering major casualties. Hajime then confronts the man in black robes, who he captures and brings back to the town. Aiko identifies the mysterious figure as Shimizu, the student who came with her group to Ur, but went missing short after. Shimizu had made a contract with a demon he found in the mountains, hoping to gain tremendous power in exchange for Aiko's head. She tries to reason with him and help him start over, but Shimizu takes advantage of her compassion and takes her hostage, asking Hajime to surrender his weapons, which is met with a resounding no. Shia's ability to see the future springs her into action as she attempts to block a bullet headed for Shimizu and Aiko. The poison needle at Aiko's neck makes contact as the bullet grazes Shia and penetrates Shimizu's abdomen. Hajime gives a dose of holy water to his poisoned teacher mouth to mouth, because why not? And then heals Shia's wound as he approaches Shimizu. Aiko begs him to heal her student. Hajime assesses the situation and Shimizu's intentions before putting him out of his misery, breaking his teacher's heart, and telling her that his stance against his enemies does not change, regardless of who they are. He and his party, along with Will, depart to conclude their mission. On the way back, his companions realize how Shimizu was too injured to be saved, and Hajime merely put him out of his misery as an act of mercy, without Aiko having to bear the burden of a student dying under her care. They all know Aiko is extremely kind, but not stupid. She will eventually accept the truth and forgive her dear student. Once again at the guild, Hajime and his companions deliver Will safely to Ilwa, who rewards them with the promised status plates, plus an additional one for their new member. As they all settle in their room for the night, Hajime notices a figure lurking in the alleyways of the town. Watching them, he isn't concerned by their activities, as he is confident that he can challenge even God if he gets in the way of achieving his goal. Hearing his words, Tio remembers her father's dying words to her, that although their true enemy, God himself, is powerful, but someone strong enough will appear one day to slay him and rid the world of his machinations. Those very words and the powerful force calling to her prompted her to seek otherworldly visitors outside of her clan's domain, leading her to meet the MC. Hajime and Shia go on to explore the town together, where they stumble upon an aquarium. Inside, they meet a familiar sentient fish which they passed by while Milady flushed them out of her dungeon. Hajime and Lei hit it off, and after realizing they're the reason he ended up in this mess, they set him free without admitting it. Before Lei went on his way, he told the two about a gang of slavers who deal with beast folk, and how they had a little mermaid in their hands as well. He tells Shia to be extra careful due to her race as he sets off. On one side of town, Yue and Tio go shopping and bond over their appreciation for their companions. On the other side, Hajime and Shia bond over the fact that they both like Tio, but she's a pervert. Just then, Hajime senses someone under them in the sewers, what feels like a weak and small child, so they go down to investigate. Detection of a person proved true as Hajime scoops up a passed-out merfolk girl who was kidnapped for auction by underground smugglers. Soon the smugglers realize the girl is missing and begin scouring the town for her. Meanwhile, Hajime and Shia bring the girl to the surface, where she regains consciousness. They introduce themselves to Mew and hurry to nurse her back to health with a hot bath and food before dropping her off with the city guard, since their race is protected by the kingdom. Against Mew's wishes, they part ways as she cries for her big bro and big sis. Shortly after, a blast and smoke rise from the same guard post. Hajime and Shia rush back to find the guards dead, and writings on the wall ordering him to give them the bunny girl or Mew dies, which makes it clear to Hajime these guys are now his enemies. As they rampage through town, they regroup with Yue and Tio, who join them on their hunt for the slavers' hideout. They split up into teams of 2 and purge the whole city of slaver gangs as they look for Mew's location. Meanwhile, the auction begins with Mew at its center. In that moment, Hajime breaks in and puts 3 bullets in the organizer's head, picking up Mew and flying her out to see the fireworks as his companions raze all the slavers' hideouts to the ground. With the little girl now safe, Hajime takes her and regroups with his companions as she gives her hero a new title, Papa. Hajime and his party make their way through a barren, rocky land to the outpost town of Dorad. This is where it all started 4 months ago, when he was last here with his classmates adventuring to Orcus Labyrinth. The group sits down with the outpost guild leader Loa Bawavis, and that is when a guy breaks in to inform Loa that a demon was spotted in the labyrinth. Hajime identifies him as Endo, one of his former classmates. He begs him to come down and save the rest of his classmates that are now faced with the demon. As the hero's party reached the 90th level of the Orcus Labyrinth, they found no monsters in sight, only their blood splatters covering the ground. A red-haired demon lady walked out of the shadows and offered them a chance to join her as Shimizu did. They decline and engage in combat with her myriads of powerful monsters, a chimera, ogres, and a spell-casting turtle pope. The group fought to the best of their abilities, but the demon's ability to heal the monsters meant they were fighting a losing battle. Their barrier caster was stabbed and seriously injured during their battle, and that is when Kaori's friend Shizuku ordered Endo to use his stealth abilities to flee and tell their captain Meld what had transpired. Endo succeeded in doing this, but the chimera had chased him to the captain's location, so he was ordered to once again flee, but this time to the surface and warn everyone of the demon menace they were facing. On the surface, Endo begs Hajime to save his former classmates despite his feelings for them, while underground the hero Amanagawa and his party manage to flee the demon. Their fear sows doubt between them as Hiyama wishes to join the demon to survive. Captain Meld reaches the hero's party only to be cut down by the demon and her chimera. The captain's death enrages Amanagawa into breaking his limits, killing the demon's monsters and forcing her into a corner. However, a trinket of hers forces him to stop as he realizes she is human too. In that moment of hesitation, her pets attack and injure the hero. Shizuku tries to buy them time, but the demon's beasts prove to be too powerful as she also falls. Kaori rushes to save her friend, but with her mana depleted, there is nothing she can do other than to accept her and Shizuku's fate at the hands of 2 giant minotaur. Before the monster's attack lands on the 2 girls, a giant rod penetrates the ceiling and impales both monsters, killing them instantly. The dust of the impact clears as Hajime stands before them. All it took was 1 bullet for the behemoth to perish this time. Hajime and his companions rush through the labyrinth, but decide that the fastest route down is a hole in the ground. As Hajime lands in front of his former adventuring group, Kaori instantly recognizes the identity of their rescuer, much to everyone's surprise, as he was supposed to be dead. As Yue, Shia, Tio, Mew, and Endo fall down and reach the party, monsters rally for another attack. Hajime orders his companions to spread out and protect Amanagawa's party as he single-handedly begins his onslaught against his new enemy forces. He wields his dual revolvers with skill as the monsters drop like flies. Kaori and her friends watch in astonishment as the man they knew as Nagumo Hajime tears through the monster hordes with unprecedented might. The Pope Turtle fires off a beam attack at Hajime, and using a relic shield, he deflects the attack at the demon woman, destroying the bird creature she used to heal herself and her forces. His companions easily fend off any attacks on the injured, as the demon makes a last desperate attack against Hajime. She casts Crashing Jail, enveloping him whole. Concerned by what she saw, Mew calls out to her papa, which catches Kaori's ear. The demon makes a run for it, but Hajime blocks her retreat as he shrugs off her magic and walks up to her. He asks her how she got her hands on those monsters, but she refuses to answer, so he puts 2 bullets in her legs, which surprises his former companions. From what little he got from her, Hajime concludes that the monster spawning was a form of ancient magic that was lent by someone she knows. Seeing as how she was no longer of any use, he aims to end her life. She warns him that her lover will seek revenge as Amanagawa tries to convince him that she is no longer a threat. Hajime doesn't think twice before he puts a bullet in her skull. Hiyama saw what happened as panic sets in. With Captain Meld stabilized, everyone involved gathers around. Kaori can't believe Hajime is still alive and breaks down into tears while leaning on him, as Yue and Shia stare with murderous intent. They all make their way back out of the labyrinth, while Amanogawa and Hajime's moral compasses collide over the killing of the demon. Hajime makes it clear that he has no ties here anymore, and will kill anyone who stands in his way, even them. He tells him that he did this because he owed Kaori, and once they're out, it's goodbye forever. After they reach the surface, Kaori gathers up her courage to confess her love to Hajime and her desire to join his party. He turns her down since his only love is Yue, but she still insists on tagging along to eventually win him over. Yue accepts her challenge and allows her to join to prove that she is Hajime's one true love. Kaori is now an official member of Hajime's party. After a bit of strangling over the papa's business, he tells her to get ready for their departure the next day. Kaori bids farewell to Shizuku and the rest of her former companions as Hajime conjures a jeep, with a car full of odd characters fighting for his love. Hajime and his companions set off to find a way back to his world, allowing nothing, not even a god, to stand in their way. Hajime and his group are driving through the desert, when all of a sudden, they get attacked by a sandworm. And I don't know where Hajime learned how to drive like this, but he is doing a great job evading the worms. It'll be a problem if that thing manages to catch up to them, so Hajime decides to bust out his anti-tank missiles and fires them at the worms. The worms are reduced to large chunks of meat, so Hajime and the others can continue on their trip. But a few meters ahead, they spot a group of sandworms gathered around something. Hajime is curious, so he pulls up the car machine gun and starts blasting until every single worm is gone, and now that the path is clear, they can see that there is a man on the floor. Hajime normally wouldn't want to get involved, but as a priest, Kaori wants to help him. And Hajime honestly wants to find out how the guy managed to survive so long in the desert without getting eaten. They drive over to him, and Kaori examines his body only to find that he is suffering from extreme mana overload. Basically, he ingested some sort of poison that is making all the mana in his body go wild, so if he doesn't get help soon, he is going to die. For now, Kaori uses a spell to drain some of the guy's mana to stabilize his condition, but unless they find a cure for his illness, his mana will go out of control again soon. The man eventually wakes up, so they bring him into the car, and first, he thanks them for saving his life. He introduces himself as Biza, and he is the son of the Duke of Enkaji. Coincidentally, Enkaji is the city that Hajime and the others are heading towards, and from the way Bize is acting, it looks like it's in some kind of trouble. Hajime asks Bize to explain the situation, so Bize tells him that a few days ago, the citizens of Enkaji began to suffer severe fevers and convulsions. They did some investigating and discovered that the oasis that the people of Enkaji rely on was poisoned, but they still haven't been able to figure out how it happened or who might be responsible. On the bright side, there is a cure for mana overload. The mineral known as stillstone, which can calm a person's mana when ingested. Stillstone can only be found in the Gruen volcano. Normally, Biza would have sent the adventurers of Enkaji to mine the stillstone, but they are all suffering from mana overload, and even if they weren't sick, an ordinary adventurer wouldn't be able to make it through the desert since Enkaji is almost entirely out of drinking water. That's why Biza took it upon himself to go look for help, but he ended up passing out due to mana overload. Luckily, he was fortunate enough to meet a group of gold-ranked adventurers, so he asks them to help save Enkaji. They soon arrive at the dukedom of Enkaji, and the situation here is just as bad as Biza had told them. Countless people are suffering from mana overload, and even more from dehydration, but Hajime and his group are ready to help. First of all, Yue uses her powers to create a pit in the ground, and after Hajime finishes paving the bottom, Yue uses magic to fill it with water. The Duke of Enkaji is amazed that Yue was able to create so much water in such a short amount of time, but using all that magic left Yue feeling drained, so she turns to MC and starts sucking his blood. Now that the water situation is dealt with, it's time to deal with the poisoned oasis, and as soon as Hajime takes a look at it with his demon eye, he figures out what's wrong. He pulls out a few grenades and chucks them into the oasis. A few seconds after the grenades explode, a slime monster emerges from the oasis. The Duke had no idea something like this was in their oasis, so Hajime explains that this thing is probably the source of the poison in the water, although he has no idea who put it there in the first place. But now, all he needs to do is defeat it, so he aims his gun at the slime's magic core and fires a shot straight through it. The slime has finally been killed, so it won't be generating any more poison, but as for the poison that's already in the water, it's going to be a while before it gets decontaminated. Luckily, the oasis is connected to a freshwater spring, so eventually, it should return to normal. And the water Yue made should be enough to last until then. Back at the city's main hall, Kaori and Shia have been helping treat all the people suffering from mana overload, but the only way to cure them for good is with the still stone. Hajime agrees to go get some from the Gruen volcano. However, it's too dangerous for Mew to come with them, so Hajime asks Kaori to stay behind and take care of Mew while they are gone. They set off across the desert, and after tearing through a horde of sandworms, they eventually arrive at the Gruen volcano. The blistering heat is already starting to make the others uncomfortable, but Tio isn't bothered by it. After a bit of walking, they make it to the main entrance of the volcano, and soon after they walk in, Hajime spots some still stone on the roof of the cave. Unfortunately, it's only tiny pieces here, so it won't be enough to cure the people of Ankaji. If they want to find a sufficient amount of still stone, then it looks like they are going to have to go deeper into the volcano. They make their way to the bottom of the staircase, and from this point onward, they are stepping into uncharted territory, so they need to be ready for anything. Just then, a fire attack is thrown at the group, so Yue uses her magic to block it, and Hajime gets ready to kill the lava bull that's attacking them. But before he shoots, Shia asks him to let her handle it instead, because she wants to test out the new hammer he made for her. Hajime agrees to let her handle the bull, so Shia charges forward, and with one powerful swing, she manages to completely shatter the bull's head. She is impressed by how effective the hammer is, but also kind of scared because this thing converts mana into kinetic energy, and the force it can create is unbelievable. After descending a little deeper into the volcano, the group manages to find a cave filled to the brim with still stone. There's more than enough to save all the people of Ankaji, so now the only thing they have to do is clear the great labyrinth inside the volcano. They ride a boat down the lava, and after nearly being burnt alive by the lava falls, the group finds a hidden island at the base of the volcano. Hajime wants to go check it out, but all of a sudden, a fire blast is launched at them, so they are forced to ditch their boat. There are fire-spitting lava snakes guarding the room, so if they want to get to it, they are going to have to defeat all the snakes. There are 100 of them, so it's going to take a while. The group works together to destroy each snake's body and mana core, but just as Hajime finishes off the final snake, he is hit by a light beam out of nowhere. Hajime is still in one piece, but that blast left him unconscious, so he starts falling to his doom, and Yue has to use her magic to save him. After getting him to safety, she tries giving him some holy water to heal his wounds, but nothing seems to work. All of a sudden, blasts begin to rain down from the sky, so Yue casts a shield to protect herself. By the time the onslaught is over, Yue is left exhausted, and just then, they hear a voice coming from above them. Fried is glad he chose to set up an ambush here since it worked perfectly, but he can't believe that Hajime managed to survive a full power blast from Uranus. Hajime finally regains consciousness, and he sees Fried up in the sky, so he kind of understands what's going on here. Fried acquired God's Age magic, so now he is an apostle and intends to do whatever it takes to make the wish of his god come true. He activates his God's Age magic and creates a rift in space, allowing him to sneak up behind Hajime and blast him across the volcano. The girls want to help him, but they are too busy defending themselves against the dragons, so Hajime is on his own for now. He manages to use Limit Break to counter the blast, but it still knocks him back, and Fried isn't giving him a chance to recover. Hajime summons his crossbits to counter the attack, and with them shielding him, he slowly begins advancing towards Fried. Just then, Fried and his dragon get knocked away by Tio in her dragon form. She then fires a blast at his dragon, and the dragon fires back at her, so now the two are locked in combat. While Fried is distracted, Hajime sneaks up behind him and strikes him across the chest before kicking Fried across the sky. He was about to follow it up with another attack, but a dragon saves him and flies him up. Hajime tries to go after him, but his body finally gives out under all the stress, so he starts falling towards the lava. But at the last second, Tio swoops in to save Hajime and carries him back to safety. Fried is amazed by the strength of Hajime's companions, and he is slightly scared since he nearly got beaten by a crippled Hajime, so he decides to switch tactics to defeat him. There is a magic device controlling the flow of magma in this volcano, so Fried uses his magic to remove it. And now, the volcano is going to erupt, taking Hajime and the entire Great Labyrinth out with it. There's not much time, and there's no way all of them can make it out of here with Fried blocking the exit, so Hajime gives Tio his cross ring and asks her to escape on her own. Hajime has every intention of making it out of this alive, but right now, Tio is the only one who can make it out of here, so he needs her to go deliver the still stone stored in his ring to Ankaji. Tio understands, so she flies straight up to make it out of the volcano before Freed can seal it off. Freed's dragons begin firing at her in an attempt to keep her from escaping, but Yue and Shia provide cover fire, and Hajime's crossbits keep Freed busy once Tio makes it out, so she is able to get past him. Meanwhile, back at the kingdom, Lilith was trying to have a discussion with her father, but when she finally gets his attention, he looks at her like she's some sort of criminal. And that's not the only strange thing either, because all the guards look like they just smoked something they shouldn't have. The king and the guards all completely ignore Lilith and continue walking, so she knows something is wrong, but she's not sure what it is. She starts walking back to her room when she notices Shizuku in the courtyard training as usual. Shizuku is pushing herself so hard because she hates how she was too weak to do anything against the demon, so she wants to become stronger. But she's still got time to take a break once she spots a cute cat on the ground. She gets really into playing with the cat, but then she realizes that Lilith has been watching her the entire time, so she gets embarrassed. After Shizuku calms down, she asks Lilith if there's any news from the castle officials. Lilith tells her that the officials say they need Amanogawa to become strong enough to defeat the demons. Shizuku asks what the officials plan to do about Hajime, and according to what she heard, it sounds like they are planning to label him an enemy of the kingdom. Meanwhile, out in the forest, Hiyama is beside himself in anger because Hajime is still alive. All of a sudden, a voice from behind asks him why he's so upset that Hajime is alive. But then again, it's understandable since Hajime took Kaori with him. Hiyama tells the girl to shut up because she can't blackmail him for attempting to kill Hajime if he's still alive, but attempted murder is still pretty bad, so if the others found out, they'd definitely turn on him. However, she is willing to keep it a secret if Hiyama helps with her plan, and in exchange, she promises him that he will get to have Kaori all to himself. Tio eventually makes it back to Ankaji, but she is so exhausted that she collapses in front of the gate. Kaori comes running to check on her, and after treating her wounds, Kaori and Miyu take her inside to rest. When Tio finally wakes up, she tells them about the sneak attack and how Hajime, Shia, and Yue were trapped in the volcano. Kaori is really worried, but she knows Hajime will find a way to survive no matter what. Still, she would like to go help him as soon as possible, but they can't take Miyu on such a dangerous mission. So first they are going to take her back to Arisen, and afterward, they'll go look for Hajime. Speaking of Hajime, it looks like he and the others managed to get away from the volcano after all. But he is still in critical condition, so it will take a while for him to get back on his feet. On the bright side, Yue can tell that the effects of the light poison from that dragon blast are starting to fade, so Hajime should regain his stamina soon. And even though they are in the middle of the ocean, Yue still plans to give him a special lower body workout. While she does that, Hajime thinks back to what happened in the volcano as the magma was rising. They had no way of getting out, so they found a door in the side of the volcano and went inside to avoid being burned to ash. The inner room was thankfully magma-proof, so they were safe for the moment, and as luck would have it, this room contained the ancient god spatial magic spell, so Yue was able to analyze it immediately. However, it will take some time for her to learn how to use it properly, so she can't teleport them out of there. They still have to find a way out, so Hajime suggests that they should just swim through the lava. The others think that sounds crazy, but knowing Hajime, he probably has something planned, so they go along with it. They open the doors, and as the room is being flooded with magma, Yue puts up a barrier around them. The barrier won't last forever, so Hajime summons his latest invention. He had built a submarine in case they needed to explore some underwater labyrinths, and as luck would have it, Hajime had made this thing lava-proof too. They all get in the sub and dive down into the magma until eventually they get caught up in a current and are spat out into the ocean from a thermal vent. That explains how they made it to the ocean, but they still have no idea what part of the ocean this is. Hajime could probably figure out where they are if he had his cross ring, but he gave that to Tio, so for now, they are completely lost. All of a sudden, their ship is boarded by mermen, and they accuse Hajime of kidnapping one of their children. Hajime assumes they must be referring to Miyu, but before he can explain anything, one of the mermen attacks Shia, so he smacks the guy across the water with a fish. The other guards try to attack, but they're no match for Hajime's group, so they get knocked out. This is what happens when people get impatient. If the guards had just listened, Hajime could have told them that he actually rescued Miyu. Speaking of Miyu, Hajime hears her voice coming from the sky for some reason. He looks up and sees Miyu falling straight toward him after jumping off Tio's back, so he jumps up to catch her. She's really happy to see him again, but once they get back to the ground, Hajime gives her a serious scolding about how dangerous it is to jump out of the sky. It turns out that this place is really close to Arisen, so they gather up the unconscious guards and start heading for the city. Once they arrive, Miyu says she wants to go see her mother. As soon as Miyu's mother finds out that her daughter is back, she rushes out to meet her even though she has a broken leg. When they are finally reunited, she is relieved to see that Miyu is all right, but she's also confused to hear Miyu calling Hajime Papa, since she doesn't remember getting remarried. Back at the palace, Shizuku happens to run into Aiko in the halls, so she and Aiko sit down to have a discussion. Shizuku tells her all about what she's heard about Hajime. Come to think of it, she recalls that Aiko had an encounter with Hajime a while back, so she asks her for the details. Aiko thinks back to that moment and immediately insists she didn't do anything illegal because Hajime is 18, but Shizuku has no idea what she's talking about. Aiko had a meeting with the king to discuss Hajime's situation, and unfortunately, the royal family has decided to brand Hajime as a heretic. Aiko tried to oppose the idea since Hajime hadn't done anything to antagonize the kingdom, but they wouldn't listen to her no matter how much she tried to convince them. And now that she thinks about it, all the council members looked like they were high and depressed at the same time. Since Miyu is now safe with her mother, Hajime decides to go explore the sunken dungeon Malusia with the others. They dive into a deep sea trench with Hajime's submarine, and they eventually locate the entrance to the dungeon, leading them to a cave. From here, they are going to have to continue on foot, so they start walking through the labyrinth and eventually come across a cave. As soon as they enter, the entrance closes behind them, and all of a sudden, they are attacked by a purple slime. Yue puts up a magic shield to protect everyone, but the slime seems to be able to melt through magic, so she can't hold it off for long. Tio figures out that she can burn the slime with her flames, but the monster keeps regenerating, so it looks like the only way to defeat it is to destroy its mana crystal. But about that, Hajime says that thing doesn't have a magic crystal. He's looking at it with his demon eye right now, and the entire thing is glowing red, so its entirely body is basically a mana crystal, and the same goes for the walls of this room, so they may already be trapped in the belly of this monster. If that's the case, then they stand no chance of beating it if they fight normally, so Hajime starts thinking of a way for them to escape. He notices some water leaking out from the ground, and that gives him an idea, so he pulls out his railgun and fires it into the ground to create a hole for everyone to get out of here. His plan works, but everyone ends up in a section of the cave that's completely flooded, and Kaori does not have the lung capacity to make it out of this alive, so Hajime leaves Yue and goes to rescue her. Eventually, Kaori wakes up on a beach with Hajime, and she asks him why he chose to save her instead of Yue. She was probably expecting him to say something about how much he cares about her, but the fact is that he trusts Yue to survive on her own, but he knew there's no way Kaori could survive this place on her own. For now, they just need to keep exploring the labyrinth until they get to the bottom, so they walk across the fields and eventually come across a shipwreck. All of a sudden, the area begins to transform, and they are pulled into an illusion of a war that took place centuries ago. People are being slaughtered left and right, so Kaori tries to save one of the men, but when she starts healing him, he fades away. They are then surrounded by soldiers on the ship, and all the soldiers look deranged, yelling that they will kill all the heretics for their god, Ehit. After killing all the illusions, the area returns to normal, but Kaori is still wondering what all that was about. Hajime believes that the illusion must have been based on past events. Kaori is sickened by the thought that all this tragedy was caused by a crazed god, so Hajime takes her to a safe spot so she can rest. He understands what it feels like to lose your mind after seeing something horrific. After all, if Yue hadn't been there for him when he got stuck in the labyrinth, who knows where he would be by now. Hearing Hajime talk about Yue like this makes Kaori feel jealous, so she asks Hajime if he thinks she is an inconvenience, and yes, he tells Kaori that she's holding him back. When she first joined the group, Hajime treated her harshly, hoping that she would eventually give up and stop following him, but she kept insisting on sticking around. Hajime tells Kaori that he is in love with Yue, and nothing is ever going to change that, so if hearing him say that makes Kaori's heart ache, then she's better off not being around him. Back at the palace, Aiko is on her way to meet with her students so she can tell them what she knows, but before she could get there, she is stopped by a nun. Aiko asks her to get out of the way, but the nun tells her that she is here to take Aiko to the Divine Mountain, and she won't take no for an answer. The nun tries to hypnotize Aiko with her charm skill, but Aiko's deity status makes her immune to its effects. But unfortunately, it doesn't make her immune to hands, so the nun just punches Aiko in the gut to knock her out. The nun starts carrying Aiko away to make sure no one witnesses this, but the princess saw the whole thing, and she knows she needs to tell someone before it's too late. Hajime and Kaori continue through the shipyard and come across a giant ship in the middle of the field. They board it, and as soon as they do, another illusion begins to manifest. It looks like this illusion might not be so bad because the king at the time was holding a party to celebrate peace between the humans and demi-humans. But then, a few seconds into the banquet, the king reveals that he is still every bit as racist as he was before. And the only reason he held this banquet was so he could slay the filthy animals that claim to be equal to humans, all in the name of his god, Ahit. Seeing all the carnage leaves Kaori feeling sick again, but they still need to keep moving, so they head down into the ship corridor. As they walk, a dark mist rolls in, and Kaori ends up getting separated from Hajime after a wind trap is triggered. Hajime tries to go after her, but he gets surrounded by soldiers, so he has to defeat them. Once he has taken out all the soldiers, he starts looking for Kaori, and before long, he finds her standing in a suspiciously dark corner. Hajime can immediately tell that something's wrong, so just to be safe, he shoots Kaori in the head with a magic bullet. Kaori falls to the ground in pain and asks Hajime why he did that, but Hajime just shoots her again. He has already figured out that something is possessing Kaori's body, but the ghost laughs because it thinks there's nothing he can do about it. However, Hajime just points his gun at the ghost again and prepares to shoot. The ghost starts to panic and reminds Hajime that this is still Kaori's body, so even though the magic bullets won't kill Kaori, he can't just keep shooting her. Hajime puts his gun down to think about it for a second, but then shoots the ghost again anyway. It's not like the ghost is going to release Kaori if Hajime stops shooting, and the magic bullets cause a lot of pain, so Hajime is just going to keep blasting the ghost until it leaves Kaori's body. The ghost realizes Hajime isn't bluffing, and the torture of being shot over and over isn't worth it, so it immediately releases Kaori's body. After the ghost leaves, Hajime gets close to Kaori to check if she's still alive, and as soon as she wakes up, she kisses Hajime on the lips. Hajime asks her what she thinks she's doing, so she tells him she's giving him her answer to his question. She is in love with Hajime, and even though she knows he loves Yue most of all, she intends to stay by his side regardless. They eventually find a magic circle that teleports them to the final area of the labyrinth, and it looks like the others managed to make it here in one piece as well. So they head to the center, and Yue begins analyzing the magic circle. Meanwhile, back at the castle, the remaining students are starting to realize that something is wrong, because it has been 3 days since Aiko supposedly went to the Divine Mountain, and they haven't heard from her since. As for Aiko, she's alright, but the nun says her power is inconvenient, so until the right time comes, they are going to keep her locked up for now. After what she witnessed, the princess has been on the run because she doesn't know who she can trust. Everyone has been acting strange lately, so she's sure something is going on, but she can't do anything about it on her own. Meanwhile, in one of the training halls, all the soldiers who have been turned have been gathered in preparation for the plan, and it looks like Hiyama is in on it. At the same time, in the demon realm, Freed tells his soldiers that he has received a decree from their god, so they will be marching to eradicate all the heretics. Back in the Highlight Kingdom, Meld has realized that something called the Void has been afflicting the people in the castle, and unfortunately, it has already spread to 30% of the army, including the leaders and officers. He asks Jose to help gather everyone who knows about black magic so they can prepare countermeasures against the Void, and in the meantime, he heads back to his office to prepare some letters. He wants to send these letters to Duke Zengen and Enkaji and Hajime in case something happens to him here, but suddenly, there's a knock at his door. He is already on edge, so he draws his sword and is ready for a fight, but then he realizes it's Hiyama, and he still trusts him, so he puts his sword away and lets him in. He asks Hiyama if there's anything he wanted to talk about, but Hiyama just keeps tapping his foot on the ground without saying a word. Suddenly, there's another knock at the door, and this time, it turns out to be Jose. The second Meld opens the door, Jose instantly tries to stab him in the face. From the look in Jose's eyes, Meld can tell that he must have been afflicted with the Void, so he is prepared to fight him off. But while his back is turned, Hiyama stabs him. But Meld isn't the Knight Captain for nothing, so before Hiyama can cause any fatal damage, he casts a wind spell that blows everyone away. The soldiers get back up and try to attack him while Hiyama prepares to cast a spell, but Meld is way too experienced to let that happen, so he slams Hiyama into a wall to stop him from casting a spell, and while he is down, Meld knocks out 2 of the other guards. The last one is Jose, and as the vice captain, Jose is a little tougher, but he is still no match for Meld, so he gets clotheslined into the corner of the desk. Normally, Jose should be tasting colors after that concussion, but he just gets right back on his feet because no amount of damage can stop the void-afflicted soldiers. Meld still has no idea how any of this happened or why Hiyama betrayed him, but more void-afflicted guards start showing up, so he has no plans to stick around. He jumps straight out the window, and after landing on the ground, he is about to fire a blast into his office to slow Hiyama and the soldiers down. But then he realizes that he's not alone out here, and before he knows what hit him, he is killed by a magic blast. The next morning, Hajime and his group are driving through a field when they come across a caravan that is under attack by some bandits. The caravan guards are greatly outnumbered, so Kaori asks Hajime to help save them. But before she's even done speaking, Hajime is already driving full speed at the bandits. Kaori thanks him for agreeing to save the caravan, but in reality, he was just looking for an excuse to use his minigun on someone. As soon as Hajime begins firing, the bandits begin dropping like flies, and he doesn't intend to leave a single one of them alive. But there are a couple of innocent people who got hurt by the bandits, so he sends Kaori out to heal them. And while she's busy healing, a girl runs up to Kaori and reveals that she is Princess Lilith. She had fled the castle in hopes of finding someone to help after what she witnessed in the castle, and as luck would have it, she happened to run into Hajime and the others. She explains how all the people in the castle started acting strangely. Even her father is now feverishly advocating for the church, and at first, she thought he was just trying to improve the kingdom's relationship with the church, but this goes far beyond anything like that. She also tells Hajime about Aiko being kidnapped by a nun of the Divine Mountain, and Hajime figures it must have something to do with Aiko's connection to him, so he has to help break her out of prison. And it turned out to be a lot easier than you'd expect, because he literally just airwalks up to Aiko's cell and uses transmutation to tear a hole in the wall. Just then, by pure chance, the demon army begins their invasion of the kingdom, and even though he wasn't expecting this, Hajime thinks he can use the chaos to sneak out undetected. However, all of a sudden, an attack is launched straight at him, completely disintegrating the prison. Hajime manages to get out of the way with Aiko before the blast lands, but now he has to deal with Noint, one of the apostles of Ahit. Noint charges at Hajime, so he tries firing some bullets at her, but she blocks all of them and nearly stabs him in the chest. Fortunately, he is able to dodge and create some space with his cross arsenal, but since he still has to protect Aiko, Hajime is practically handicapped against Noint, so all he can do is dodge and defend against her attacks. Noint is impressed that Hajime is capable of keeping up with her even though he is stuck carrying extra weight, so she admits that he is indeed quite strong. But she says he is still unfit to become one of Ahit's pawns. Hajime takes that as a compliment and tells Noint that he wouldn't want to become the pawn of a shut-in brat like Ahit anyway. But on another note, he asks Noint if she really has the time to be fighting him right now. I mean, the kingdom is currently being attacked by the demons, and if she doesn't do something soon, it will be completely destroyed. But Noint has no intention of helping the kingdom, so if it's going to die, then it's going to die because that's what Ahit wishes for. Hajime now realizes that Ahit sees all people as nothing more than pawns to be killed for entertainment, and at this point, he wouldn't be surprised if Ahit is also being worshipped by the demons and orchestrated this whole war just for fun. Apparently that's exactly what's going on, so Noint asks Hajime what he plans to do about it, but Hajime honestly doesn't care. In fact, he would be happy to get out of Ahit's way entirely if they just agreed to send him back to his original world. However, Noint tells him that's not going to happen because Ahit has more hate for Hajime than Spider-Man's writers. Hajime overcame every obstacle in his way and gained amazing strength for himself, and Ahit doesn't like that, so he wants to see Hajime die a pitiful and painful death. That's a lot to take in, but Hajime now knows that there's no point in trying to reason with Noint. Just then, Tio shows up and blows Noint out of the sky with her dragon's breath, and Hajime has never been so happy to see her. He hops onto her back, asks Tio to get Aiko to safety so he can fight Noint at full strength, so Tio flies off, and Hajime turns back to face Noint. Noint uses her magic to launch a fireball at him, so Hajime jumps out of the way and starts firing his machine gun at her. Noint is too quick for Hajime to hit her with his machine gun, so he tries blasting her with his cannon point blank. But Noint vanishes and appears behind him, forcing Hajime to block with his cannon as she slashes at him. He doesn't have many options here because everything he has tried so far has failed to even scratch her. Noint charges at him again, so he tries grabbing her swords, but she's too strong. He jumps back to create some space, and in the process, Hajime gets cut. However, he notices that Noint's swords are starting to take some damage, and that gives him an idea. He summons several crosses and has them fire full power blasts at Noint. She manages to come out of it completely unharmed, but Hajime never intended to hit her with that attack. He pulls out 2 rings and throws them at Noint, but she easily knocks them away. Noint believes Hajime is finally running out of options if he tried using such a desperate attack, but then he takes out his guns and aims at 2 rings beside him. The rings are connected with spatial magic, so when he fires his bullets, the shots come out right next to Noint, forcing her to block with her swords. As a result, both her swords are shattered, allowing Hajime to tie her up with a magic rope. Now she has nowhere to run, so he loads up his railgun and penetrates her with a 12-inch thick rod. There's no recovering from a wound like that, so Noint dies and falls out of the sky, and now that his fight is over, Hajime goes to check on Tio and Aiko, and it looks like they blew up the entire church. Tio was initially going to just burn it down, but Aiko wanted to help, so she used some magic and ended up creating a bunch of methane. The methane was way more powerful than she expected it to be. Tio personally thinks Aiko is really impressive because she never could have destroyed the entire church on her own, not to mention all the people inside the church who most certainly died in there. As soon as Tio says this, it dawns on Aiko that she really just killed people, and she breaks down in regret. Hajime knows how she must feel, so he comforts her and says everything is going to be fine. Just then, a figure appears from the ruins of the church, and it doesn't look like a survivor, so Hajime gets curious. He asks the man who he is, but the man remains silent and points toward a magic circle on the ground. The circle looks like the same kind from the Great Labyrinth, so the 3 step onto it and are teleported to a separate room. As they walk in, they step into another magic circle. The spell in the circle is one that allows you to manipulate the soul. It could even be used to transfer a soul from one vessel to another, and if something like this exists, Aiko believes there must be a spell out there that can send them back to Japan. But that aside, they need to hurry back to the capital because it's still under attack from the demons, and they don't know if Hajime's classmates are all right. Earlier that day, after hearing all the commotion outside, Shizuku and a bunch of the other girls got worried, so they went to get Amenagawa so they could figure out what's going on. Just then, one of those voided soldiers comes over to the group and informs them that the demon army is attacking the capital, so they need to come to the stadium immediately and prepare for battle. They agree, but as they are walking to the stadium, Shizuku realizes something is off, so she tells everyone to stay on guard. However, they are suddenly blinded by a flash of light, and while everyone is blinded, the guards turn on them and stab everyone in the back. Shizuku is the only one left standing, but she doesn't know why this is happening or what she should do. Just then, her personal maid runs up to her, pretending to be injured, but as soon as she gets close, she stabs her in the back as well and slams her face to the ground. Eri then begins to laugh because everything turned out exactly how she wanted it. Eri walks over to Amenagawa, and she is so happy that she finally has him all to herself, so she kisses him for an uncomfortably long time. Shizuku asks her why she is doing all this, so Eri explains that she has been in love with Amenagawa for a long time, but rather than confessing her love to him like a normal person, she decided it would be much more effective to kill everyone close to Amenagawa and kidnap him so he can never leave her. Shizuku asks her if she's also the reason everyone in the castle has been acting so strange lately, so Eri explains that everyone has actually been dead for a while now. She used her necromancy skill to reanimate their bodies and restore some of their memories so they could act like normal people, aside from the fact that they always look high. Eri has always hated her classmates for getting in the way of her one-sided relationship with Amenagawa, but she especially hates Shizuku, so she is going to take great joy in watching her die. However, just before Eri could have Shizuku stabbed, a barrier is cast over her, and Eri is blown away. The one responsible is Kaori, and she immediately starts casting a healing spell so all her classmates can recover from their injuries. However, just before she could finish the spell, Kaori gets stabbed in the back by Hiyama. Hiyama is ecstatic that he finally managed to kill Kaori, because now Eri can turn her into his personal slave. But Kaori doesn't give up that easily. So even though she has a sword sticking out of her chest, she finishes casting the spell and begins healing all her classmates. The healing spell starts working on her too, so it looks like Kaori might survive after all. But then Hiyama pushes the sword back in, and the light finally fades from Kaori's eyes. Seeing this enrages Amanogawa to such an extent that he breaks free from his shackles and swears that he will never forgive Eri for what she has done. He raises his sword and launches a heavenly slash, tearing through Eri's army of undead soldiers to get to her. But eventually, Amanogawa falls to the ground and starts spitting up blood. It turns out that when Eri kissed him earlier, she actually gave him a poison that would leave him immobile, so now, no one can stop her. Eri is about to use her magic to turn Kaori into a puppet, but at the last second, Hajime shows up. He doesn't know exactly what's going on, but he can tell that Kaori is injured, and Hiyama and Eri are the ones behind it, so he flash steps behind Hiyama and punches him into a wall. Tio and Aiko soon arrive, so Hajime asks them to take care of Kaori for him. Kaori is already dead, so healing magic won't do much good, but they should be able to at least bind Kaori's soul to her body to keep her from dying completely. Meanwhile, after seeing what Hajime did to Hiyama, Eri realizes she is next, so she tries bargaining with him. She promises to resurrect Kaori if Hajime lets her go, but even if she does resurrect Kaori, Kaori will be stuck as a puppet forever, so Hajime isn't interested. He is about to shoot Eri in the head, but all of a sudden, Hiyama attacks him from behind. Hajime easily catches him and holds him up by the neck while Hiyama whines about how it's not fair that Kaori likes Hajime instead of him. It's honestly sad to listen to, so he tosses Hiyama out of the stadium, and unfortunately for him, he lands right in the middle of a swarm of hungry demons. And he's got 0 plot armor, so Hiyama is definitely dead. Hajime then turns back to Eri to finish her off, but out of nowhere, Fried teleports in, and he wants revenge for the humiliation he faced at Hajime's hands. He says his demons have already surrounded the stadium, so there's nothing Hajime can do to stop them from destroying the kingdom and killing his friends. Hajime doesn't really care about what happens to the kingdom, but Fried is really pissing him off, so he pulls an item out of his inventory and uses it to summon his death laser. In the span of a few seconds, every demon in the area is disintegrated, so Fried now has no chance of winning, so he is forced to retreat. But before he leaves, he takes Eri with him because she is a valuable asset. Yue and Shia show up shortly after Fried leaves, so Hajime asks them to help maintain Kaori's soul. Shizuku is still devastated over Kaori's death, but Hajime tells her to have faith in him and his team, because no matter what, he won't let her die. The next morning, reconstruction efforts have begun within the kingdom, and Lily is now the new ruling monarch. According to the damage report, the attack on the kingdom was also the work of Eri, because she got in contact with the demons, and gave them information that allowed them to invade the capital. She did all of this just so she could live out her fantasy with Amanogawa. However, the brainwashing and murder of the king were the work of the nun from the Divine Mountain, but she has since gone missing, and they can't seem to track her down. As for the heroes, they are all currently training in the stadium, but Shizuku keeps looking up at the sky because she is waiting for Hajime to return. He promised that he would bring Kaori back to life, but Amanogawa still doesn't trust him, so he doubts Hajime will return. However, a few moments later, Hajime and his friends drop from the sky and crash land in the middle of the stadium. Shizuku is overjoyed to see Hajime, so she runs up to him and asks if he managed to save Kaori. Hajime tells her that Kaori is fine, but she's a little different now. He wants Shizuku to promise that she won't get mad at him. Shizuku doesn't understand what he means, but then Kaori crashes down into the stadium as well, and for some reason, she looks like Noint. Hajime explains that he used God Age soul magic to protect Kaori's soul, so once her condition stabilized, they took her soul and placed it in Noint's body. Shizuku kind of understands, but she asks why they chose to put Kaori's soul in Noint's body. Hajime explains that he could have put Kaori back in her original body, but she asked him to put her in Noint's body instead, because she would be stronger that way. Shizuku is incredibly grateful that Hajime saved her best friend, so she swears that if he ever needs something from her, she will be sure to repay the favor. Hajime tells her she doesn't have to worry about repaying him because all he did was save the life of his friend. But that aside, he has something he needs to tell them. Hajime explains that Ahit has been using everyone as mere pawns for his own amusement, and Amanogawa is infuriated to learn that all they've been working for has been a lie. He asks Hajime why he didn't tell them about this sooner, but even if he had told them, there's no way they would have believed him. Later, everyone is having dinner, so Shizuku asks Hajime where he plans to go now. He tells her he is going to the Great Labyrinth, and the path he is going to take happens to cut through the Empire, so Lilith asks him if she can come along. As the new ruler of the kingdom, there are a lot of things she needs to discuss with the emperor, so she would like to meet with him as soon as possible. Hajime is fine with Lilith tagging along, but since she's going, Amenagawa says he and the rest of the class will go as well because he wants to become stronger with God Age magic so he can save the world, since Hajime clearly doesn't care about doing that. All his classmates feel the same way since they want to be strong enough to protect themselves and their friends, so Hajime agrees to bring them along. But he didn't agree because he's a nice guy. He just thought he could use them as good meat shields once they got to the Great Labyrinth. This was the end of Season 2. Subscribe and hit the like button to let us know if you would like us to cover Season 3.